Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today we're going to be checking out the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system. And the goal today is to help you figure out if this is going to be right for your particular flat toe setup. So we'll go over how this works and what it's going to work with. So let's say you're setting up your flat toe and you've got all of your other parts picked out already, your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your tow bar wiring, and that leaves you with a decision to make on what supplemental braking system to use. And that's a really important decision because the supplemental braking system is responsible for helping to slow your vehicle down whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome. And the vast majority of the states here in the US, it's going to be a legal requirement for the most part. And honestly, there's really no reason not to use a supplemental braking system because it's going to really help reduce the time it takes for you to stop and slow everything down. And you're not just going to have to rely on your motorhome's brakes to handle everything, you know, the motorhome and the vehicle that you're towing. So when it comes to picking one out, if your motorhome has air brakes like ours does, this is a system I recommend hands down. We do a ton of them here. I've got a lot of experience with them and they just flat out work. They're extremely reliable and, you know, just as important, super easy to set up whenever you are hooking everything up. You know, it's not going to be a complicated process, keeps everything straightforward. Matter of fact, that ease of use is probably one of my favorite things about the kit. When you're ready to set up your flat toe and get hooked up, when it comes to the braking system, there's only two things that you need to do. One of them being you take the air line, plug that into the fitting on the back of your coach. And then you have this little tether here that you connect to the hitch on your motorhome. Those are going to run to the front of your towed vehicle. Air line will plug into the fitting mounted up here. And the tether will go to the breakaway switch, which is a safety device, and we'll get to that in a minute. And that's why this kit is going to be designed to work with motorhomes that have the air brakes, because it utilizes the air pressure to activate or apply the brakes in your towed vehicle. And because it's set up that way, it's going to make this system truly proportional. What that proportional statement means is however hard you apply the brakes in your coach, that's how hard the brakes are going to be applied in your towed vehicle, which just makes for a much more cohesive stop. You know, you're stopping as one big unit. You know, the motorhome isn't trying to slow down faster than your towed vehicle or vice versa. So to give you an example, that let's say if you're going down the road, maybe you hit a red light and you're halfway on the brake pedal. You know, the towed vehicle is going to respond the same way. On the other hand, you know, if you need to make an emergency stop and you really got to stand on that brake, towed vehicle is going to do the same thing. And overall, it just makes for a much more predictable and comfortable driving experience. The way the system is actually going to apply the brakes in your towed vehicle is by using this actuator cylinder here. So this is connected to your brake pedal arm and then is connected to the firewall on your vehicle to give it a good anchor point to pull from. And so whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, that air pressure comes back to the cylinder and applies that brake pedal on a proportional type way. And then of course, once you let off the brake, it'll release the pressure and release the brake in your vehicle. On the vehicle side of things, this is going to be the main operating unit, okay? And it's kind of the brain, if you will. It's going to control the airflow that comes in and out to actuate that cylinder. And it's a really straightforward design. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why this kit is so reliable. Like I said, we had a ton of luck with them, rarely with an issue. And the compatibility as far as the vehicle side is excellent too. That's one of the really nice things about this kit. It's going to work with pretty much any vehicle out there, generally speaking. You know, whether you have a regular gasoline engine, a diesel engine, hybrids, so on and so forth, this will be compatible with those. Even a lot of these more late model vehicles like our Jeep Grand Cherokee L here today, a lot of manufacturers are starting to go with electric assisted brakes, which ours has. And so even if you find yourself in that scenario, this will still work and apply the brakes in that particular vehicle. A lot of people wonder about the size of the operating unit, which makes sense because you might want to try to figure out if there's a particular place you can mount this up or anything like that. Especially in a lot of these newer vehicles, there's not a ton of extra space here. And with this kit, the unit is about as small as it can get, really. It's pretty compact for what it is. And I just have an extra one here on hand. It's just easier to see. I'll give you a couple of measurements. All right, we'll go from there to there. That's going to be roughly 7 3/4 of an inch, so not very long. As far as from this flange to this one, it's going to be about 7 inches. And as far as the height of it goes, it's pretty slim. That'll be about 1.25 inches. So 99% of the time, you're going to have a spot that you can mount this up with relative ease and get everything to look clean and function properly on your vehicle. As far as the motorhome side of things go, a lot of people wondering if their coach is going to be compatible. And as long as you have the air brakes, there really shouldn't be a reason that this kit won't work. Like I said, I've got quite a bit of experience with this kit. Honestly, I've probably installed 100 of them over the years, and there's yet to be a coach that this hasn't worked with. All the different years and manufacturers with those air brakes, they might be a little bit different, from the next, but the concept is still the same. And the kit's going to come with several different parts and fittings to accommodate that. So you should be able to tie in without any issues there. Which kind of brings you to my next point. A lot of the motorhomes with air brakes are these bigger buses, right? And a lot of them have an exhaust brake, or some people call it a Jake brake. And people wonder if, by using the exhaust brake, is that going to apply the brakes in your towed vehicle? And the answer is no. And that's because the Air Force One gets its air pressure from when you actually apply the brake pedal in your coach. All right, so that's why the exhaust brake on the motorhome won't affect your vehicle. And one of the really nice things about the Demco Air Force One is all the different varieties of the kits. They really thought everything through, and there's several different variations of it. You can kind of grow into it or change things up a little bit if need be. So let's say, for example, you set your motorhome up, set your vehicle up with this kit that we're talking about now, but a year or two down the road, you get rid of your vehicle, or you get an additional one you want to flat tow. They make second vehicle kits that come with just the car parts that you're going to need. So coach is done, you can set up your new car, get flat towing again. Same's going to hold true for the motorhome side. If you end up upgrading motorhomes, you're probably not going to go underneath there and take the parts off, right, and put them on the new one. So they offer the motorhome only side of things. And, as of late, a lot of these late model coaches now, the chassis manufacturers are starting to put the Air Force One parts for the motorhome on it right out of the factory. And so that really speaks volumes about this Air Force One system. If the chassis and the manufacturers have faith in them and they're confident enough to put them parts on right from the factory, then that speaks volumes, at least in my opinion. It's a good, reliable system, or else they wouldn't do that. I did mention this breakaway switch earlier on, and I figured since we're right here, might as well touch base on it and what it's going to do. So this is a safety device, and in the event of an unlikely disconnect, what would happen is this pin would pull out, and when that pin pulls out, what that's going to do is activate the brakes in your towed vehicle. And so that'll just help slow things down and get everything back under control. To help you keep an eye on things and make sure that the brake pedal in your towed vehicle is indeed being pulled down whenever you hit the brakes in your coach, there's going to be an indicator light. And when that brake pedal gets pulled down, it's going to illuminate red. and when it releases, it'll turn off. So a quick way to check back here whenever you're towing and make sure everything's working. If you think that indicator light might be kind of difficult to see out of your motorhome or something like that, or just want something a little easier to work with, and guaranteed you're going to be able to see it, there is what's called a wireless coach link monitor, which is this here, which more or less moves that indicator light inside of your dash. That way you can see it plain as day whenever you're driving down the road. So you can pick this up separately if this is something that you'd want to add on later, or if you know for a fact you'd rather just have this as opposed to the indicator light on the vehicle. This is offered as a kit as well. So you'd get the same exact Air Force One braking system that we're showing you here today, just won't come with the indicator light. It'll come with this instead. I feel like we really kind of touch base on a lot of the parts that's going to go on the vehicle side of things, but not so much on the motorhome side. And when it comes to the coach, it's pretty simple, really. There's not a whole lot to it. You have that one fitting in the back that we plugged our air hose into, and you're going to have this little tank that will get mounted up underneath the coach. And of course, a couple of air lines that connect to it. So even though we ain't got a ton of room underneath here, why don't we crawl underneath and show you how ours is set up. This is our tank and everything's set up on our coach, and what this is going to do, it's more or less just a mini holding tank, right? That way there will always be a little bit of extra air pressure and everything for the braking system to utilize and operate. And in our case, it's pretty well open under here. It's not always the situation, but today we kind of lucked out because we can get a really good look at this and how it works. And with, you know, in the past, you were kind of limited with these on where you can mount them. But Demco, you know, they're constantly making updates and changes, and always for the better. And this tank was one of the things that they changed not too long ago. They made it a little more compact, simplified it, and because of that, now you can mount it in pretty much any orientation that you want. So pretty convenient, because that's, you know, it's not always wide open under here like ours is. So if you have to mount it in a weird way, then so be it. You're not going to hurt anything. But what happens is you're going to have a supply line that feeds air into here, and that supply line on your motorhome is the line that's always going to have air pressure, right? And then there's what's called metered air, which will also go into here. And that metered air is, you know, you're only going to have pressure when you hit the brakes in your coach. That's what that metered air is. And we kind of talked about that. Since this uses the metered air to apply the brakes in your towed vehicle, that's how it's going to be proportional. And then, of course, the very last line coming out of this tank, that's actually going back to the fitting on the back of her coach, which is feeding the main operating unit with the air pressure it needs. As far as the tubing is concerned, it's nylon air tubing, which is really high quality. They give you a big roll of it, and at all these that I've put on, I don't think I've ever fallen short, you know, in terms of length goes or anything like that. So most cases you're going to have more than enough for your particular application. And the tubing, it's high quality tubing, because all this stuff isn't the same. You know, it might be labeled the same, but once you get your hands on it, you can tell one's cheaper than the other, if you will. And with this, it's good stuff. You know, it reminds me almost exactly of the type of airlines and how they're built that come on these coaches right from the factory. Just like the operating unit, figured we can give you a couple of measurements on the tank that's going to go on the motorhome. This plate here, it's pretty nice. They include this, gives you a lot of different mounting points. That's going to be 6 inches by 6 inches, and if you need to, something that I've done in the past, just trying to get this in a tight spot or something, is actually remove the plate and use the bracket that's already attached to the tank. So if need be, that's something you can do. And as far as the height of it, that's going to be about 6 inches, and from fitting end to fitting end here. It's going to be roughly about 13 inches, so about as compact as this can get. To compare this kit to some of the other ones, honestly, it's kind of tough for me to do that because when it comes to motorhomes that have air brakes, I really feel like this system is kind of in a league of its own. You know, hands down, I think it's the best setup for these big coaches with the air brake systems and, you know, the vehicles that you're trying to flat tow, just the longevity of them, the reliability, so on and so forth. You really can't go wrong. But, you know, if you're not really too crazy about the thought of having to add a couple extra parts to the coach or, you know, add parts to the vehicle, I completely get that as well. You know, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but, you know, you're still going to need a supplemental braking system. One you can always look into is a portable type system. The Blue Ox Patriot, I'm a big fan of it. I had a lot of experience with it. And it's a really nice system too, and will work in just about any scenario. Other than that, at the end of the day, this is an extremely solid braking system. You know, a lot of people are happy with them, and I can see why. Just the simplicity, and they just flat out work like you'd expect them to. So, you know, if you're looking for a supplemental braking system, you got air brakes on your coach, definitely one to consider. But with that said, I think that'll about finish up our look at of the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system.